Okay, I'm going down to the right-wing rally now to ask some questions and see what it's all about. Wish me luck. At least 2 riot vans at the moment, just driving around. As I was riding past, they seemed to start to follow me. I don't know if I look dangerous, but I don't particularly do.
So what do you know what the name of the protest is? What are they calling it?
They're calling it Save Our Country and Stop the Boats.
Save Our Country and Stop the Boats protest. And as far as you're concerned, you want this to be peaceful. You don't want any violence or smashing things up.
No violence at all.
What can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The yells that are coming from just a couple of hundred meters over there in the park. It's loud. It can be quite intimidating.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, or is it nothing to worry about in your perspective?
Certainly, I think it is actually something to worry about because it does seem a bit intimidating over there already. As I probably could tell, it's probably about to kick off in about the next 10 minutes as well.
All right.
And he wasn't wrong, sadly. There were fights that followed, lots of fights and violence.
Thanks for speaking to me, man. So obviously we're down there at the rally down in Castle Park in Bristol. And what brings you down there today?
Some people had enough in what's going on in the country at the moment. I think the government isn't listening to us. The police think is a one-way system with us and them.
What he's referring to is so-called two-tier policing. He means that the police come down harder on the right than they do the left. All the usual right-wing commentators have been peddling this, including some MPs and far-right group leaders. There are some echoes in history. When Ronald Reagan was governor of California, for example, although he didn't use the words two-tier policing, it was effectively implied with regard to his views that students protesting against the Vietnam War weren't dealt with strictly enough by the police, and he oversaw an increase in police presence and campus restrictions consequently. It's worth noting that the two-tier policing has been used against the left throughout history, including the Jim Crow laws in the United States, where black Americans were treated harsher than whites, colonial policing, such as that in British India, and apartheid South Africa, where black South Africans were treated unfairly, to name just a few. It's also worth noting that the right's claims of two-tier policing have no basis in reality or evidence. For example, the Met's so-called two-tier soft on the left policing approach has resulted in almost 3,500 arrests of Extinction Rebellion activists between April 2019 and September 2022. And since October the 7th, where Israel invaded Gaza, around 500 arrests have been made linked to pro-Palestine protests. I'd also note that from my perspective, having been down there at the rally in Bristol, I did see that the protesters who were on the right were the ones drinking, which is technically illegal in Castle Park. So they were doing that more, they were squaring up to the police and generally being more rowdy.
Personally, I don't agree with stuff like people smashing stuff and that, and causing riots on the street. Because there's young kids at the end of the day, and they're like smashing down people's houses, burning police cars and police stations. Ain't the way to do it.
So I spoke to a few folk from the protests on the right who expressed similar sentiments, and I think what this chap said next is quite interesting, and I'll explain after why.
Okay. But they're saying that the police should do better what happened in Stockport. And in the end of the day, the police in Stockport couldn't do anything about it.
With the Stockport stuff, do you think that there was an overreaction to the individual, the murderer, the 17-year-old, being Muslim, when actually he wasn't Muslim at all, and it had nothing to do with Islam? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
So what do you make of that?
I make about that because he was just black. They thought he was Muslim, but he wasn't Muslim. He was actually Christian. And I do have a thing actually with that and against that as well. I agree that he had mental health issues and that he should have got help from the mental health team at the time. But the thing I don't get either is that he should go around Stockport streets killing like young babies.
But in terms of hundreds of people reacting and smashing things up and attacking mosques and this sort of thing, when it had nothing to do with Islam, because he wasn't Muslim. Do you disagree with all of that?
I do disagree with that. I just don't think they should smash up mosques and police stations and police cars and burn stuff down.
So I think what's interesting there is he says that he's opposed to all of the riots that happened in Stockport after the murder of those poor young kids, and yet he's come out to a protest which on the surface is aligned to those rioters. Some of the protesters on the right had genuine concerns about immigration, though any opportunity to broach the topic felt overshadowed by the racism of some in their ranks. When I was speaking to this young couple, an older right-wing protester came over and was racist about some Asians, as he described them, nearby. I was really happy to then hear this younger guy denounce that racism. That's right, a guy wearing a St. George flag called out racism. Now that's not me holding him up as some kind of superhero. He did what any civilised person should do. My point is that writing off anybody for simply wearing an England flag isn't helpful, and I think that good faith conversation must be given more time. We didn't get a chance to speak about how the number of small boats arriving in the UK had actually increased in recent years, despite realities like Brexit, and the reasons for this including raging wars and smuggling gangs becoming better skilled, or mechanisms like the EU's doubling regulation, which used to help us process asylum seeker claims, and how it compares to the framework that we use today. We did find some more common ground though. We spoke about the riots in Stockport and he agreed with me that they were wrong. We found further commonality after I raised other strikes that had happened in the area in the past, like the Liverpool Dockers strike, which ran from 1995 to 1998, where working class people protested for fair pay and job security. We agreed that they were protests worth fighting back then. And we didn't get there off the back of name calling or by making assumptions about the other person's character. The less of that we have moving forward, the more progress we'll make. Thank you for watching, and please let me know any thoughts. Let's carry on the conversation respectfully.